You're listening to a podcast by Last Minute Crack with your host, me, Christina Hamilton. Last Minute Crack is your one-stop shop for all things arts and culture in Dublin City. For more information, check out our website at lastminutecrack.com or visit us on Instagram at lastminutecrack. A special thank you to Thibaut Kemere for his help with the sound and for the music on this intro. Another thank you goes out to Zoe Spillane for her help managing the page. And now for your episode. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Last Minute Crack podcast with me, your host, Christina. Today, I'm so blessed to have a gorgeous guest with me who I will remember to introduce this time, Colm Gavin. Welcome to the podcast.
How you doing? Thanks for having me.
So I'm so excited. We've been talking about doing this podcast for a while now, and I'm so glad we got around to it because I mean, there's just a lot to start off with. So you've been doing music, I guess, from what I could read from the age of 14. What was it at like that age that you were like, this is where I'm starting, this is where I'm going?
I started lessons around the age of 12 and it was more out of necessity because I was so dreadful at everything else. That's genuinely the truth. And my mother had the great foresight to say, you need to have something extracurricular. You know, you need strings to your bow, just more so to develop as a human, like to kind of have hobbies and interests and stuff like that. And music, we went on a holiday when I was about 12. We went out to Florida, to Orlando, to Disneyland and all that kind of stuff. And while we were there, this was about 2004, so it was the last of the record stores. And there was a place called Mall at Millennia in Orlando, which was kind of like Dundrum Shopping Centre, to give you a visual image of what it was like. And it had a huge record store in it, Amoeba Records, and one of those kind of things, Tower Records, that type of vibe, but it was neither of those things. And I was just blown away because I had just started to get into music. So I had my mother's Discman and I was listening I bought Roy Orbison records, Frank Zappa records, Neil Sedaka, Barry Manilow, and just like stuff that even at its time would have been considered very cheesy. Yeah. Songs like Mandy. And I was saying before we started that good. Like there is a tinge of saccharine to what I do, but in a way that I don't mind so much. But when you play piano ballady type things, it's inevitable. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think your music is I love it so much because I think it's sweet and it's a little bit cheesy sometimes, but who doesn't like sweets and who doesn't like cheese? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, maybe not on the same plate, but yeah, I know. Yeah. I don't know how everybody else is eating, but that's what I'm trying to have in my ears. So you were starting off and then you went to Florida. And so, yeah, like I guess I think there's a lot of people out there who've taken up an instrument or tried something, but like there's not a lot of people who've gotten to where you've gone to. So like what was the moment where you're like, this is me, I'm pushing for it. This is something I'm like clicking with? Yeah, well, Christina, I had an amazing teacher, a guy called Peter Stanton, and he was like a character that Roald Dahl could have written. He had like a twizzled Burt Reynolds mustache, cool, and the Farrah trousers with the perfect seam, and the United Colors of Benetton jumper. And he got me so interested in the music of Brahms, Beethoven, Chopin, and also the Great American Songbook. So Jerome Kern, Harold Arlen, who wrote a lot of the music for things like The Wizard of Oz and that kind of thing. So we would have a Saturday morning music theory class, but it was done through song composition. So he'd take a piece like Someone to Watch Over Me or Misty or any of those jazz standards and say, okay, this is an E flat. If we move to this chord, what is this chord? How would you identify a primary chord and a minor 4 movement and that type of thing? And there was just something about song composition. I'm looking at a keyboard here while I'm talking. That just fascinated me because it was almost like magic. You know, when you think of the great songs like Bridge Over Troubled Water or Mandy, like I mentioned, 1 minute it wasn't there, and the next minute it was, and then it becomes something that resonates. It's the song some people walk down the aisle to. Yeah, it's your anniversary song. It's a song you remember trips with your parents. And music has such a permeating quality that I thought, to be one of the people who bring songs into the world and give them a life, how magic would that be? It is magic. Yeah. It is, absolutely. And like there is like, I think everybody has those songs that they cling to for like specific moments, as you're saying, like walking down the aisle, like everybody's, you know, oh, what is that going to be? Or my first dance with my love, or first house viewing. Well, we'll see what the soundtrack to that could be. Quite troublesome. Tragedy. When the feeling's gone and you can't go on. Yeah. But yeah, and so have you found, like, I guess that's the question, have you found your song in that, or my contribution to the musical.
No, but like your Mandy, your bridge over
there's
water.
so many. There's so many. Well, it's more artists that I resonate with. So the great American songwriters of the 70s, the early 70s, like Jim Croce, like Dan Fogelberg, and their sound, their type of music is very similar to mine. So like if I'm describing what I do to somebody, I'd often reference people like Jim Croce, like Dan Fogelberg, or and then like the great literary artists of Ireland, James Joyce, Samuel Beckett. All of these, it's like an amalgamation of things that seems to take an effect, because with music, primarily songwriting, you're talking music and lyric. So at any time, a screenplay can be an influence, or a piece of chamber music, something that doesn't necessarily have to have lyrics. And so I think if you can allow yourself to be a conduit for everything, it comes out in the music in one way, shape, or form. And I'm lucky in the sense that because what I do isn't pop music, you can get away with a cheesy lyric or a saccharine lyric here and there. And it kind of allows you to be a little bit more expressive, because you're not thinking, I can't do this because it's not a pop song. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that type of thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you found your like niche, I guess, so quickly. And I guess here's a little curveball for you. So you've referenced like a lot of like American musicians and culture and that kind of stuff. Like, what did you find in that you couldn't find in Irish music specifically?
Well, it was just what I found first. It wasn't like I listened to everything from 1943 up to present day and said, nah, not for me.
Not for me.
I mean, no, I did.
No,
I did.
Enya for me.
Oh no. And Enya is someone who's actually been really good to me. I'm with BEO Records, so that's her sister Moya Brennan's record label. Yeah, so Enya is somebody who's been a huge source of support. But no, I mean, the music of the Furies, the Dubliners, the Botti Band, of course, Sweeney's Men. I grew up in a house where there was an eclectic array of music. It was just, when I came to my own compositions, if I was to reference anything, that the music of people like Barry Manilow, Neil Sedaka would be
you just
a huge
gravitated
influence.
over there.
A little bit. But I mean, like if you listen to the new album, there's multiple of different influence sources.
Yeah.
That you can
Well,
hear.
you've described your music as like jazzy, bluesy, folksy, but like it tends to just be a good time. Like you have good time music and music that's touching and has a lot of feelings. And I guess there's a question for you. I mean, what comes first really for you? Is it the lyrics that are, and then you're like, okay, I feel it, or do you have a tune in your head and then you kind of build around that of how you're feeling? Like, how does that process work for you?
I tend not to go around with ideas in my head. It's not till I'm at the piano. And I think, okay, what do I want this to be? And it's not what kind of song do I want to write today, or what key does it have to be in. But an idea might come and then you just follow it through. So we say it's a song like Dreaming Again, which I wrote with Charlie McGettigan.
Love that song.
Dreaming Again started off as kind of like a finger-picking James Taylor type thing. It was just, well, obviously it was just written on the guitar. And then Charlie sent, what Charlie would tend to do was you'd send a verse and a chorus and you'd be really happy with it. And he'd go, well, here's how I see it going. And he'd take a different approach with it and change it slightly. And he'd be like, all this needs is a middle 8 and then we're done. Like we started writing songs in April of 2020. And from April of 2020 to April of 2021, we wrote about 70 songs.
Amazing.
From beginning to end. And we've recorded some. He does some in his gig. I do some in mine. And when you're writing with somebody of Charlie's age, because it's almost 50 years between us, you sometimes wonder, will subject matter resonate? Because naturally enough, the priorities in his life are going to be somewhat different to mine. I mean, maybe only slightly. But Dreaming Again was one of those we really hit upon and felt that there was a connection. The sentiment in it being, for him, the line, it's winter and the trees are all bare on my street. And when snow comes tumbling down, I can half make out faces of people I meet. That was with the masks during the pandemic.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
And for him, it was like, is it going to be a Christmas without my family again? And the other verse is about, somebody waiting for their partner to come back from studying abroad or that kind of thing. Yeah. He went on Ireland AM and said, now, I have a very straightforward idea of what the song is, and Colm has this terribly convoluted idea. And I'm like, talk about dissing me on telly. But
hey, look, any press is good press.
No, I know. Well, yeah.
We're drumming up the drama. We're making a little controversy. We're making
Charlie
a little spice it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Call Joe Duffy.
Joe, I'm dreaming again. What is your take?
The controversial lyric of 2022.
But that's amazing. And like, it's rare that you see like, I guess, collaborations like that, like cross-generational collaborations. I mean, in like the music industry that I've been watching for a while now, it is like young people with young people, and maybe that's just on me that I haven't been, you know, kind of broadening my horizons on that, but like it is kind of a rare thing to see. And so what did you like, what was the best thing you've learned from that experience, I guess, because it is something that's, you know, very unique to you?
From working with Charlie, was being able to let go of things.
Really?
Do you know this idea of killing your darlings?
Yeah.
That
my
expression?
God, it breaks my heart. Yeah.
No, but you think you've written a line that you're really happy with, or a verse section, let's say, but it just doesn't fit the song.
Yeah.
But you think, but I really want to hold on to it. You can use it for something else at some point.
Yeah.
And being able to look at it as that kind of dichotomy, that it's not all about the one song.
Yeah.
There's going to be other ones too. So that little middle eight idea that isn't going to work for this song will go somewhere
else,
down the line. And he's a master at that. Like sometimes the best thing you can be as a creative is an editor, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
To discard stuff and to say, no, well, that's not going to work for this song, but I will make it work somewhere. There's a song on the new album called What's Another Drink Between Friends, myself and Ciara Dalton. Ciara Dalton is an incredible vocalist, but also an incredible songwriter. And there's a really cheesy middle eight in it that she says, take me out dancing, I want to go. And I said, how about a TV dinner and the Late Late Show? And she said, did you just put that in the hopes that we'll get asked to do the Late Late Show and you can sing that line and look at the camera? And I was like, no, I meant like any late show, like David Letterman or whatever.
But if it happened, it would be nice.
For sure. But what I mean is, I know people who would like, oh yeah, that's funny, but you're not putting that on the record. You're not actually going to record that lyric. And I say, yeah. Like it's funny. Because I don't take myself too seriously when it comes to the music, I wouldn't be ashamed to put a lyric like that on the final cut, you know? And I think the more unhinged you can be as a creative person, you know this, that you're not constantly watching yourself and you just be a channel or a prism for whatever the idea is and let it come to full form. That's the goal. You
really have to like kind of, shed expectations and shed like, I suppose, like kind of systems of what should be proper, you know? And I think that resonates with so many people. I mean, like it's great that there's people doing so many different things, but there's also great that like you can have music that really makes you feel like a hug or makes you feel like that's what I want to just, and to not like bring it down, but like I want to like switch this on the record player because my record player is Bluetooth and I can put my phone on it and just
What do you mean your record player is Bluetooth?
I have a vinyl record player that is also a Bluetooth speaker.
Oh, also. Okay.
Yeah.
Have we reached that?
It's like, I know, high tech, but I was like, but like you want to plug it in and just kind of go around the house and just like it feel good and just kind of, it's like that warm hug of a feeling. And so where am I going? I'm going to talk about, we're going to bring it back. So you had a beautiful teacher, really inspired you. Okay, so let's talk about the steps from there to getting signed, because that's something that's kind of a gray area that I don't think a lot of musicians really understand how that works. How was that journey for you?
I watched an interview of Tommy Tiernan's with Brendan O'Carroll recently. It was like a playback, and he tells the story that his mother used to say to him, the first thought you're going to have when you find success is, that was so easy. Now, I didn't have that particular thought, but it never, what I mean by that was, Christina, it wasn't a journey. Things just kind of happened. Like, I would have loved to have been signed, and it happened. I was 22, 23 when I signed with BEO Records. But I can't say that was always the intention. I tell the story. I started out as a busker in my performing life. If I was still on the street without a proper abode, a proper place to live, I'd be doing it anyway. This is the phrase I come back to again. I would be doing it anyway. And BEO Records is run by Moya Brennan and Tim Jarvis, and I knew their son and daughter, Aisling and Paul, both of whom are musicians, and we kind of crisscrossed in life at various intersections. And they had made it apparent that they were moving from it being a family-oriented record label to sign a new artists. And I'll throw my hat in the ring, see what happens. And they arrived at one of my gigs in the Workman's Club, and I spoke to Tim, and I was always very intimidated at Tim. He's a very tall stature, and he's someone who, he worked for the NME, the Musical Express in England. He was a chief photographer. He has photographed the Smiths, Morrissey. He was there for the beginning of so many different musical movements. So he's quite an imposing figure in a good way. Like, to me, he was an imposing figure. And he kind of called me up to the smoking area and he said, I have to bring a friend to the airport, but I loved what I saw, and call out to the house in a week or two's time and we'll sign you to the label.
No way.
This would have been in November of 2015. So the anniversary is coming up.
Oh, we have to do something.
We might have to crack open a bottle of crack into the vitamin C effervescent tablets. So yeah, that was how it happened. And then I brought out my first. I lied and told him I had a first album ready to go, and I didn't. And I went to producer Adam Walsh, who one of these people who could pick up any instrument and just make it sing.
Oh, they make me sick.
Me too. Me too. But he's an exceptional, and he's a great guy as well. And I said, we have 2 weeks to make an album. And he said, okay, let's go for it. So we made a 12-track album called A Voice for the Urban Darlings in 2 weeks. And it came out December the 18th, 2015 with BEO Records. That was my first release with them.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It sounds like you lived my dream, which is I perform and then Simon Cowell is in the back. And then he's like, I've never seen anything like you before. You're incredible.
Well, no, nobody said that to me. Nobody said that.
I'm going to come over to your house.
It was more like, we've never quite seen anything like you. It wasn't. And I think one of the things I would say to younger people listening, as I know there's maybe not to my episode, but there's plenty who do to your podcast, is you should just make art for the sake of making it.
Absolutely.
These people, there's an 18 to 25 bracket that it's like, oh, I got, straight in at number one and all this kind of stuff. And it's defeating the point of what, like, more people hear what the chart entry was than what the song went like. You know what I mean? And I think today, where it's so disposable and we have the technology around us to be able to make music very quickly, make it for the sake of making it. Because then there's a greater chance that it's going to resonate with somebody, rather than let's construct this pop amalgamation that sounds like everything else that's on the radio in the hopes that 2FM play it.
Well, there's a big conversation around like the algorithmic like creation of music at the moment. What are your thoughts on that off the top of your head?
If it's well presented, it doesn't really matter what it is. If it's somebody playing a button accordion or a concertina, or if it's the bagpipes or Mongolian throat singing, if it's done really well and presented well. Because some of the things you see on reels that are shot in 4K, half the time you don't know what you're looking at till about 15 seconds in, and then you realize, oh, they're miming a music video or something. Yeah. So your eye really catches HD, So I think if it's well presented, it doesn't matter what you're doing. I tend to, like on the way in on the bus in here, I was listening to Bulgarian folk music.
Cool. From like the oh, sorry. I thought I knew a band, but then I realized it was a different country.
It was like the halftime music at one of the Eurovisions.
I was going to say Eurovision, but I was thinking about the Ukrainian Eurovision entry. I was thinking Bulgarian.
No, this might have been from like 90. No.
Oh, we're going throwback.
It wasn't 93, because 93 would have been in Ireland. I know this because of Charlie. Charlie won in 94.
I can put in post. I can put it in.
Yeah.
It's here now.
I'll send it to you. No, but just amazing. Like I tend, like, you hear things like Sabrina Carpenter and stuff like that because it's top 20 music, and you just hear it because it's there.
It's in the shop.
Yeah, exactly. You hear it by consequence. You won't hear Bulgarian folk music by consequence.
You have to search that out.
You do. And I'm always interested in just different melodic ideas and stuff like that, So yeah.
It seems like music is really like fundamental to your life. Like I've seen a lot of musicians and like they have their music time, but it feels like it's a 24/7 thing for you.
It is. And the way when you talk to some artists, it feels like a posture. They can't wait to tell you about. Like when I walked in that door, the first words out of my mouth were, I was doing this thing for TV last week. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where it's like, I'm more interested in what somebody makes rather than how much they make. Do you know that kind of thing? And for me, I tried to stay very close to wherever the beginning of that place is. Does that make sense, Christina? Like that, like the start of the idea. That's what I'm most interested in. I don't really care about the glitzy side of it, which is why I don't. Well, that's not the only reason, but like I wouldn't consider what I do pop music. It's tough because the domain I work in is contemporary music. So like, I'm very fortunate that people like John Creedon and Cathal Murray on Radio 1 play my music with some degree of frequency, but I need to get it heard by people somehow. Do you know what I mean? So it's there's certain tropes that you need to use to get your music heard.
Yeah.
That is sometimes in the pop realm. And then you hear my record and someone at home is listening and go, what is this?
No, I love it.
We've just heard Espresso and now we're hearing some song about
mood change.
His feet.
I want to talk to you about your audience, if that's okay, because I think from just talking to you and from listening, it seems like you're one of those artists that creates music for other people, like also for yourself, obviously, because you have to like what you do. But it feels like you're looking for a resonance with your audience. What is your audience like? Who are the people that are going to your gigs, and how are they, I guess, picking up on your tunes?
It can vary hugely. Like when you work with somebody like Charlie, you become exposed to his audience naturally because we released a record together. But also I've toured with this great American songwriter, Dean Friedman. He'd be about 67, 68 now. And his audience would naturally be sort of 45 and up. And I think the great opportunity you can be afforded as an artist is to be able to open for an established artist over a long period of time. Because you get a chance to win over a new crowd. And so from working with artists who would be somewhat older than me, your crowd tends to be in the 45 plus range. Although, like summer just gone, myself and D. Colm were doing a little tour around Ireland, and I was amazed at how some of the audiences were 20, 22, 23, that type of thing. So it's cross-generational in the same way. When I'd go to see Randy Newman, I might feel like I'm the only person in my 20s there or whatever. Yeah. And then you meet, you get a lot of music students, people who study music and stuff like that. But it I've seen as old as 70, 75 at my gigs. It just depends.
And what has been the most resonating thing that you've heard from them about your music? Have you had any stories, or have you had this made me feel like this, or reminded me of this kind of energy?
My dad came to one of my recent gigs, and there was an American couple. I'd say they're in their early 60s to the back of the room, and I do a song by Harry Chapin called "Cats in the Cradle," which, if you're not familiar with it, it's the story of a dad who too late realizes he was spending too much time in the office and not enough with his son. And it tends to be one that tugs at the heartstrings of older men. And my dad says to me afterwards, that man beside me was crying when you were singing that song. Stop. Now, it's not that that's my goal. No, I don't hope to look out to an audience and see floods of tears. But it's nice when there's a quiet resonance. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
That's beautiful.
Because sometimes I think, you ever see these pop productions like Taylor Swift's shows and stuff, that it almost looks like going to watch fireworks. Yeah. Does that make sense?
So intense. It's a sensory.
It's not a concert anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean? The singing is the last thing that they think about. Yeah. And you sometimes see these reviews. I was going to say TV3, Virgin Media would interview people coming out of the gig and say, how was it? Oh, it was amazing. What did she sing? I don't even know, you know? And that frightens me a little bit, because I'm not knocking it, because I hate to be one of those people who are a music snob or whatever.
The Swifties are coming for my podcast right now. No. Cancelled. No. We're cancelled.
No. I quite enjoy Taylor Swift's music. It's for me as an artist, it'd be very hard on that level because what I do is I play folk clubs and jazz clubs and theaters and stuff. So I'm always really impressed by people like groups like AC/DC, like any of these huge, the Eagles, who aspects of their music, certainly with the Eagles, can be quite intimate. And then you do that to 13, 14, 20,000 people. That I always just wonder about that exchange.
That's so interesting.
No, but it must be very difficult, because there's no way you can grip a whole stadium. I've sat in an auditorium of 200 people and everybody's razor focused on what's happening. But I've also been to big gigs where there's people who are looking at it like a social event. They're having a conversation, they're drinking, and their song comes on. Do you know what I mean? I just don't know why you'd spend a couple of $100 to go and do that. Yeah. That's all. I'm not knocking people who, artists who perform in that arena, or that domain. I just think there must be a strange exchange.
Yeah. Well, it's different, right? And I think the idea that you're trying to, I guess the experiences are different, and the things that you're trying to do is not what a big concert like that is trying to do. But at the same time, we went to a gig, I think it was on Culture Night or something, and the artists were phenomenal. I won't say what it was because I don't want to be rude, but the artists we were so excited, and maybe there must have been 200 people there, and because it was the way it was, people were just excited to be in that location rather than the artist, and we had to we had a bit of a knip because people were just down the back talking like so loud, and like people are trying to perform and give an experience, and like we were so excited for this experience, and then it just kind of ruined it. It's like how it just brought to my attention how you need to like manufacture the gigs and to around the artist and around that experience, because I guess the way it was marketed or the way that people picked it up, I think was, I don't know. We talked about it afterwards. It was a difficult thing to do, and I know I've been quite vague, but it was just when you were talking about the social event of things, it is so much nicer when people are invested in the music and the talent and everything. Anyways, I want to talk about glitz. I want to talk about glamour. I want to talk about touring. So you've like done a tour in the US and you've toured around Ireland and also the UK. How has that been? Like, I don't think I've ever talked to anybody who's toured as much as you.
You know, the panic when you're going to the airport the night before, the morning of, or the night before, where you're like, do I have this? Have I got this packed? Do I need this? Yeah. Imagine that every day for about 2 months.
Oh my God, I don't think I'd make it.
From the travel aspect, I tend to travel fairly light, particularly if it's only across the pond, like if it's in the UK. But going to the States is a different thing. And also, it's, as an Irish person, the relationship with Ireland and the US has always been a huge thing.
We're good. He's telling me this 5 minutes, not 5 seconds. We got 5 minutes. We're all good. We'll keep playing.
The relationship between an Irish artist being in the United States, you're like, even walking around Manhattan, you're constantly reminded. There's just little reminders of the history of immigration and being, you know, my grandfather told a great story. One of his friends, Jimmy Chambers, and dropping him in a borrowed car down to Cove to see him off. And at that time in the late 50s, the assumption was that they'd never see each other again. Yeah. Now, thankfully, in years that passed, they did get to see each other. They've both passed away since. But you feel the weight, you feel the brevity of that. When certainly for me, if I'm in New York or if I'm in Pennsylvania or if I'm in even in Los Angeles, you feel it to some extent. But it's amazing there was one particular concert in Boston in the City Winery to perform a piece of music and to hear it sung back by an audience who in a place that you've never been to before.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's a feeling.
Oh my goodness.
That's a feeling.
And you played in some pretty like established places. What was it? West 44th and Broadway.
Oh yeah. Birdland.
Yes. And how was that experience for you?
Amazing. Jim Caruso and Billy Stritch. Billy Stritch was Liza Minnelli's piano player for many years. And Frank Sinatra. And they have an event called Cast Party, and it's the creme de la creme of Broadway performers. And I mean, you're talking about people who are absolutely at the pinnacle of their game. And I got a message from Jim, and he was like, "Come down, take part in the show."
Oh my God,
and
your life's like a movie.
Why not?
Your life's like a movie,
like
right?
A very bad Z-list movie sometimes. But no, it was amazing, and like their on-stage band. So I was playing the piano, and like that moment where your musical education kicks in. So I'm like, okay, guys, F major, it's a 2/4 type swingy thing, you know, because we had no time to rehearse. And Birdland's a venue that can hold, it's intimate, but it can hold about 300, 320, and it was a full house that night.
Oh my God, the energy must have been electric.
Oh yeah, it was terrific. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. But it also puts you to the test, because like I like to play. I have my keyboard degree that I'm very proud of, but you know, I haven't like played technically for a very, very long time, and I've forgotten all the keys, and I'm doing the music Duolingo class to bring back my theory, which is really fun. But like putting yourself under that pressure, how did it feel like when you were like, was it one of those magical moments where you're like, okay, and a 1 and a 2 and bang?
Literally like that. If you go onto my Instagram, you can actually see it.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay, we'll link that in the description, because that'll be super fun.
Yeah, it was amazing. I did a song of mine called "It's 4:45 on Firebird Avenue." It's kind of a swingy.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. And then you've played like in massive arenas here, like Vicar Street, Board Gauge, and with some like amazing people. Like how have like, but you were also like super down to earth, which is kind of weird. Like, how do you reckon with that? Like, how do you feel about sharing the stage with some like, I mean, what was Damien Rice, Glen Hansard, like these massive like monoliths of music, and then you're coming into my podcast and you're just so chill. I mean, how does that work for you? How does that feel?
You mentioned Vicar Street. Well, I remember walking in to do sound check and thinking, Bob Dylan played on this stage, Neil Young played on this stage. And I always feel concert venues hold on to the energy from certain nights. If you've been to an amazing concert, you know what I'm talking about. And I remember sitting on the stage and breathing that in for about an hour just after sound check. and sitting and noodling at the piano and stuff like that. And it being such an overwhelming experience, because when you begin learning instruments, that's so far from your mind. You're not even thinking about the day that might happen. I'm always just very grateful, Christina. And again, it goes back to this thing. I love the process of sitting at the piano writing songs. I get to write songs for a lot of other artists, particularly in the country domain in Ireland and in the States. And hearing a song come to fruition, there's an amazing artist, Lauren McCrory. She's releasing a song of mine called Prairie Moon in a couple of weeks' time. I haven't heard it yet, but I can't wait. You know, and things like that. That's what really excites me. Getting to play a venue like the Bord Gáis of Vicar Street's amazing, but that lasts like an hour. Do you know what I mean? And then it's lovely. But yeah,
you're so chill about it.
No,
my last thing that I want to talk about before.
Sorry, I've been yapping.
No, this is the whole point of a podcast, is to yap. I think it's your latest album is Dance with. I'm digging in the Idle Flower.
Digging the Idle Flower.
And I was listening to it yesterday, in preparation for today, and I love that the first song opens with "Well, Howdy, Hello." It's like a beautiful welcome into the album that I've never heard before, and it just felt structured very intentionally. How was the creation for that album for you? Was that on purpose? And how did it feel?
Only that you said to me there, I never thought about it.
You never thought about that? Oh no, you're kidding me.
No, genuinely. Like, it's the opening song because the first thing you hear is my voice. There's no instrument before it. That song that you're referring to is called What's It Like in LA, and it's when, say, you have an ex-partner who's now living abroad, and you open up the chat and you're like, hey, how's it going? How are things? And you talk about the weather and what's it like at home. And you're just distracting yourself from asking a question that you really want to ask. And in the song, you never ask it. You get to the end of it and it's like something else, but hey, that can wait. What's it like in LA? And it's only about 2.5 minutes long. It's not a very long song, but it's just a preamble. It's just nonsense talk that we all do when you really want to get to the meat and potatoes of the issue and you don't have the courage to. So it's a kind of a non-entity of a song. You know, there's no happy ending. There's no anything. There's a line, do you still find the time even once in a while to traipse Barnes and Noble, read on the beach and laugh till you cry? You know, all the things about somebody that you loved about them that were uniquely them. And you hope that as life progresses that they got to hold on to that, because so often in life you're crippled by bills and the responsibility that life presents after 25 or 26 or whatever. And your hope for that person is whatever life has thrown at you, I hope you held on to that. That's what it's about.
I love it. And how, what was different about making this album and than the previous?
This was recorded over 2 days and it was recorded live. So any of the instruments you hear, with the exception of one or two, a bass and drums, was all in the one room. It was done in an old Georgian house in Clondalkin. And it was like, you know, a room with high ceilings, not dissimilar to this. And we just used bracket dividers and stuff like the Beatles like the Beatles used to use, because I'm not very good at that overdubbing stuff unless I really, really have to. Like Dreaming Again, that would have been, I just recorded my vocal. I wasn't there for anything else.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I mean? So whereas with this, I was in the room to see it all happen.
So much nicer, I think.
It was lovely, yeah. If you can do it. It's not always possible, but if you can do it, it was lovely. And Aidan Duffy, to his credit, who produced the record, kind of let the music just happen. He wasn't very, do it this way, change this, whatever. He was like, you know what you're doing. Do it.
I love that. Oh, brilliant. Well, this has been the best chat ever. And we're going to continue chatting, but over on Patreon. So if you want to listen to us yap more, come on over. Well, he said it, not me. But we'll be over there. So thank you so much for listening. We'll be back probably next week with another episode. And yeah, I love you. So thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. Do you have anything you want to plug? Plug away.
I have 2 big shows before the end of the year. One is in Abbey Lane Theatre in Armagh, and the other is in the Vico Rooms in Dalkey. So if any of you out there enjoy my music and would like to come to a gig, I'd love to see you. And we'll leave the links for that in the description. Colm, it's been a pleasure. Christine. It's been a pleasure to have you listen to us, and we'll chat to you next time. Bye.